Good afternoon and welcome to the marketplace. Coming up, President John Mahama releases third batch of ministerial nominations with MP for Ningo Pram heading to the Ministry of Communications, Digital Technology and Innovations. Also, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Julie Essiam, pushes for full implementation of IMF structural reforms as she submits her resignation letter to President John Mahama. Also, former Minister of Finance, Seth Terkper, appointed Presidential Advisor of the Economy. We will explore his role and what he brings to the table in this bulletin. Now, let's bring you an update on how the Ghana cedi is faring against major global currencies on the currency market. Straight to the detail, President John Mahama has released third batch of ministerial nominations with MP for Ningo Pram heading to the Ministry of Communication, Digital Technology and Innovations. As you can see, there's Sam George will be heading that particular ministry, and he's going to do a lot in terms of one key factor that he has been advocating for is the removal of the e-levy and some other taxes on communication and ensuring that the digital sector is well advanced. President John Mahama nominating Emmanuel Amakufibwa, the MP, as Minister for Lands and Natural Resources. Already he's undergone his vetting early. Okay, he's yet to undergo his vetting later on to going forward. Also, the Abdul Rashid Pelpo, the MP, has also been given the Minister of Labour, Jobs and Employment. Before we delve into some appointment issues related, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Julie Essiam, has resigned. This was contained in a letter to President John Mahama about her decision to step down after over 5 years in the institution. All right. So I have with me here my colleague George Wiafe, but before then, the former Minister of Finance, Seth Terkper, has been appointed President by John Mahama as Presidential Advisor on the Economy. This was contained in the latest round of appointment release from the presidency. Let's do some analysis on that. Joining me here is my colleague George Wiafe. George.
But before we get into Seth Terkper's what he's bringing on the table, I think that we can do something small on Julie Essiam in the letter that she submitted to the President John Mahama through the Finance Minister designate. And we understand that that submission was done somewhere, that is yesterday, through the Minister designate. If you go through that letter that we have cited, she first actually gives some brief background as in her work at the institution, and also highlighting the contribution of the staff in terms of revenue mobilization. She also tries to make one critical point that if it hadn't been the staff, you know, even on monthly basis, targets that were set by government, they were able to hit or achieve those targets. But she also made some critical argument that going forward or arguing that basically the staff are those critical that is supposed to be needed for the institution going forward. And that the IMF, as part of the program, they've actually put together what they call these structural reforms in terms of revenue mobilization. And she made that plea to the president that whoever takes over from her should actually stick to these IMF proposals on how to improve revenue. The target is that we're supposed to do somewhere around 19% or 20% of GDP. And she was pleading with the president that whoever should take over should stick to these reforms. Again, if you go through that letter again, she also makes a critical argument that she will be submitting a detailed report on how we fared as a country's revenue mobilization and what we have to do if we want to raise the required revenue to finance government expenditure. Don't forget that this government is talking about the big push and embarking on some critical expenditure programs if they move forward this economy. So all those things are captured in the letter that she sent to the president through the Minister of Finance.
Talking about a big push, the presidency has basically appointed Seth Terkper to be an advisor on government based on the economy. What is the background to this particular appointment?
So it appears that, the president has promised that he's going to only appoint 60 ministers to try and have a lean government. But you still have certain very critical persons in that space or within their fold. And how do you manage these brains or human resources so they don't go waste? So it appears that the president still believes that he can have Seth Terkper in his fold to play that advisory role. We picked up that when he was in opposition, Seth Terkper played a very, very important role in terms of that advisory role as well. So that is why maybe the president thinks that even though the party and he wants Ato Forson to be his Minister of Finance, what can he do to also bring this former Minister of Finance to his fold to ensure that
now, strategically, let's look at this from this angle. Now, we have Seth Terkper, we have the Finance Minister, Ato Forson. In terms of the economy, what do you project, or who do you think will have the listening ear of the president?
Let's first look at the functions based on what we have picked up. What we have picked up is that Seth Terkper is going to play a more of an advisory role to the president when it comes to international issues, dealing with the donors, dealing with the IMF and all the rest. He's going to play an advisory role. And what we have even picked up from persons who are close to Seth Terkper is that he's going to stick to that role of a technical advisor. So you wouldn't see him coming on air, granting interviews, even in economic management meetings and all the rest. He would play that role of a technical advisor, just putting some advice forward in terms of how to deal with the situation, rather than me playing a very active role, being all over town and talking all over, because there is a finance minister, and let everything about the economy defer to the finance minister whilst he stays behind and plays that advisory role to the president. You asked a very critical question about who does the president listen to when it comes to the final advice on the economy. That would be a quite difficult one. Ato Forson is supposed to be the Minister of Finance, manage government finances. Seth Terkper is supposed to be a presidential advisor. If you should cast your mind back to several instances in the past about finance minister and advisor, it has always been a challenge, and sometimes they even had differences. But what we are picking up now is that he is supposed to play a presidential advisory role. So even though the finance minister will make that proposal that this is what we have to do when it comes to an IMF program, Seth Terkper could, all other things being equal, have the final word as in the way forward on an issue. We've had several instances in the past, Kwesi Boche on the IMF program, even though when Seth Terkper was there. So if the president sticks to that convention, it looks like Seth Terkper will have the final word. That is an advice on the economy, on what they have to do on revenue, what they have to do on free SHS, what they have to do on extension of the IMF program. This is his advice. It will be left to the president to decide on whose advice do I implement when it comes to the broader economy.
Judge Biafra, we appreciate your breakdown of this particular development. We'll make sure to bring you up-to-date analysis subsequently in our bulletins. Now, moving on, the Minister Designate for Food and Agriculture, Eric Opoku, has announced government will be deploying several methods to address the rising food inflation in the country. He contends the Feed Ghana program, farmer service centers, among other key initiatives, will be introduced to control inflation. These, he believes, will go a long way to bring food inflation down. Mr. Opoku made this known when he appeared before the Appointment Committee of Parliament.
To address food inflation in Ghana, you need a multifaceted approach. First, you have to work towards increasing production, food production. And that's the reason why we are introducing the Feed Ghana program. Second, you have to work towards the reduction of cost of production, reducing the cost of agricultural production. And that is why President Mahama wants to establish the farmer service centers. These farmer service centers, when established, we are going to deploy agricultural machinery, tractors, tillers, combine harvesters, to these centers. And Mr. Chairman, this time round, we are not going to import only the big tractors. We have taken consideration of the fact that 90%, almost 90% of our farmer population are into peasant farming, and they do not have the capacity, regardless of the subsidy placed on the agricultural machinery, to procure. And so we are going to bring in more of mini tractors, mini tillers, mini combine harvesters, and deploy them to the centers. Fertilizer, subsidized fertilizer, will be reintroduced, and this time around we'll distribute them through the farmer service centers. Agricultural improves.
Still from the House of Parliament, Minister Designate for Roads and Highways, Kwame Agboja, has described the scrapping of the road tolls as an act of illegality. Speaking at the Parliament's Ministerial Vetting Committee, Mr. Agboja stressed that the road tolls will be reinstated digitally to enhance efficiency.
To address food inflation in Ghana, you need a
When the issue of the road toll started, our side, Honorable former minority leader, together with me and the former road minister, Honorable Makwata, decided to caution government that do not cancel or suspend road toll. Let's rather find ways of plugging the leakages in terms of the collection and enhance it. Honorable Haruna and myself met Honorable Amakwata and gave our commitment that don't cancel it. Indeed, we were surprised on the day the road toll, they claimed they zeroed it. For me, it was an act of illegality. Yes, they said they just zeroed it, but it was a road fund has got an act. It's a law, so you couldn't unilaterally do that. As a result, I believe there was a level of negligence in the way it was done. They claimed road toll was accruing only about 80 million. But today, there are contractors working for government of Ghana who are owed 5,000 cedis within the roadside. Can you imagine how many roadside weed clearers will be paid with 80 million? So they cancelled it, and our side consistently stood on principle and said, bring the road toll back. Yes, the road toll is coming back, but not in the form of building obstructions on the road for drivers to stop and somebody taking money from them. It will be coming back based on a technological platform that make it fair and that make it easy to collect, easy to account for, and for the public to know what the money is actually being used for. Together with the road minister, we shall come out with a policy as to how that will be done.
Meanwhile, the Minister-designate for Roads and Highways, Kwame Agboja, has raised concerns over rising debt that has accrued over the years.
In 2017, our respected colleague, who is no longer a member of parliament, in his word, was alarmed by the fact that the NDC government was leaving a commitment debt of 17 billion Ghana cedi in the road sector and 1.5 billion cedi that being certificates approved, which were not paid. At the transition committee, it turns out that as of today, I've not been to the ministry yet, what they presented to the committee, the NPP government is leaving a minimum of 100 billion Ghana cedi commitment. What you should be worried about, though, is that in that same document, they are saying that certificates unpaid as of today from GOG amounts to about 20 billion Ghana cedis. The ones with road fund is about 15 billion Ghana cedi. What you should be more worried about, my brothers and sisters and colleagues listening to us from outside of this hall, is that if you take the indebtedness up to 2025, which is the road fund debt alone, out of the 15 billion, look at these details. In 2018, we were owing about 113 million Ghana cedi. The interest on the 113 million Ghana cedi this year will be 665 million Ghana cedi.
Now, away from the House of Parliament, government recorded another impressive 39% oversubscription of Treasury bill sale as demand for the short-term instrument grew. That's according to the auction result by the Bank of Ghana. This, however, came at the expense of mounting interest rates, which will increase interest payments. There is more in this Business Desk report.
The government got 8.890 billion cedis from the total bid tendered by the investors, largely banks, but accepted 8.839 billion cedis. The target for the auction was 6.353 billion cedis. About 5.6 billion cedis came from the 91-day bill, representing 63.9% of the total bid. The government, however, accepted 5.648 billion cedis of the bid. For the 182-day bill, 1.318 billion cedis were tendered. However, 1.307 billion cedis were accepted. 1.883 billion cedis were tendered for the 364-day bill, in which all were accepted. Meanwhile, interest rates went up again, raising concerns about the government mounting interest rate. The yield on the 91-day bill shot up by 8 basis points to 28.41%. That of the 182-day bill also increased to 28.97% from the previous 28.96%. The rate on the 364-day bill also increased by 11 basis points to 30.17%.
President John Mahama has revealed that his government plans to offer fresh incentives to businesses to help them create more jobs in the country. The move is part of an effort to let the private sector lead its effort to reduce unemployment in the country. Chief of Staff Julius Debra disclosed this in a speech read on behalf of the President at a Thanksgiving service for the First Sky Group at the Accra International Conference Center.
First Sky Group is a Ghanaian holding entity comprising subsidiaries with interest in hospitality, construction, insurance, banking, commodities trading, and bitumen processing. Speaking at a 22nd Thanksgiving service, Chief of Staff Julius Debra said government is willing to support the private sector to grow.
Other conversation that the President wants us to intensify, because it's already started, is that if you consider the history of this country, you find out that most of us went into school with the mindset that when I leave school, where I will find job. But he wants us, as part of the resetting agenda, to begin to think that when I leave school, how many jobs can I create? And so this conversation is going to be intensified, holding consultations with people like Eric and his team, and many other people from the business community, that let us find a very practicable way of creating jobs. We will allow you certain concessions that will enable your work flourish so that more citizens will get jobs to do.
Executive Chairman of the group, Eric Utuche, said the group is set to construct a 200 megawatts of renewable power in the northern regions within the next 2 years.
The First Sky Group has taken a very bold step to raise the needed funds internally and externally to undertake construction of a solar PV project in Yendi, which sits on about 140 acres land filled with solar panel to harvest 50 megawatts of the renewable power. This is a collaboration between First Sky Limited and the Bui Power Authority. This project is about 65% complete, and we intend to complete it by the second quarter of 2025. And we also hope to construct within the next 2 years another 200 megawatts of a renewable power in Yape and Salaga to be onboarded onto the national grid. This project is intended to make electricity affordable in the near future, as reliance on the fossil fuel for power generation is globally unsustainable.
The 22nd Thanksgiving service was under the theme Proclaiming God's Unfailing Love.
Now, the Kumasi office of the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority has surpassed its revenue target for the 2024 fiscal year, amassing over 450 million cedis in the Ashanti region. This marks a significant turnaround after 3 consecutive years of missed targets. By implementing strategic measures to enhance revenue collection, the division boosted its revenue by nearly 14% by the end of the year. Emmanuel Bright-Kwe could report from the handing over and retirement ceremony of the sector commander in Kumasi.
Revenue mobilization at the Customs Division of the Kumasi Collection has from 2022 been dwindling, impacting revenue targets of the unit. However, in 2024, the collection managed to post more revenue, accruing 454.69 million cedis. The figure represents 13.7% increase on its 399.43 million cedi target for the year. Speaking at a send-off ceremony, outgoing Sector Commander, Assistant Commissioner Vivian Glover highlighted strategies adopted in achieving the milestone.
Last year, the Kumasi sector was given a revenue target of 399.43 million Ghana cedis to be collected by the end of December 2024. As at 31st December 2024, we collected 454.69 million Ghana cedis. This means we did not only meet the target, but also exceeded it by 13.7% increase. This is a feat that had eluded the Kumasi collection for the past 3 consecutive years.
This achievement of the unit adds to the many successes attained under the leadership of AC Glover. After 37 years of active service at the Customs Division, she is bowing out as the 3rd female commissioner at the Kumasi Collection. She was appointed the sector commander in 2023. Commissioner of the Customs Division, Brigadier Zibrim Ayurugu, touted the achievements under the former sector commander's leadership.
The impact on the division has been profound, emphasizing policies and procedures that have strengthened the Customs Division's operation. On behalf of the Customs Division, I extend our deepest gratitude to you for your remarkable dedication to service.
AC Glover is handing over the command to Chief Revenue Officer Evans Tay Agbozo after successfully supervising the daily tasks of the command.
That's all for the marketplace here on Joy News. My name is Winston Taki. For more business update, visit www.myjoyonline.com and follow all the highlights from the veteran happening today. Have a good business day. Bye-bye.